Hello and welcome. If you want to get straight to the recap, you can skip to the time shown on the screen. Otherwise, I just want to take a minute to get situated with a map. So Netflix has this website dedicated to The Witcher where you can find characters and their histories, all the maps. There's even a bestiary. It's an interactive website. It's really cool. I'll link it down in the description. So starting up north, we have the main northern territory this season, Redania, and we have the Blue Mountains and we have Kaer Morhen, where all the witches go to train and they go there in the winter to heal. Even though the location is in large part a secret on the show and we're only told that it's in the mountains, you can still find it on a map. And then we have Oxenfurt. Basically, most of the elves or anybody who wanted relatively safe passage into Sintra was smuggled via Oxenfurt. Then we have the center of it all, Sintra, or Sintrea as the elves call it, because that's what it was called back when it was originally elven territory. Then there's Sodden. They're picking up the pieces after a very narrow victory against the Nilfgaardian forces. Gorsvelen, previously elf territory, but this was taken over by Temeria, one of the northern human territories as well. Aretuza is this little island, kind of in between Oxenfurt and Gorsvelen. Rivia, where Geralt is originally from. Brugge. I thought this was just fun because it's a Belgian city name. And at one point, Istred is poring over the maps, trying to look for a passage via land for the elves. And this is where it's mentioned, kind of in passing. Then we have Nilfgaard right down south. And just for a little perspective, the top arrow is pointing to Sintra. Okay, onto the video. In episode 1, Colin, a merchant with a woman and a child, arrive in a town in the dead of night and in the snow in search of lodging for the night. They are promptly attacked and killed by an unseen creature. The mages, meanwhile, are surveying the damage by the Nilfgaardian forces in Sodden. Tissaia can't find Yen in any of her visions. We learn that they won the battle with the help of Yen, but barely. Remember in season 1, Tissaia told Yen to let her chaos explode. Geralt arrives with Ciri looking for Yen as well and learns that she's probably dead, having sacrificed herself in the battle, which he thinks wasn't worth it. Geralt and Ciri are traveling through the forest with Roach, and we finally learn a bit more about Kaer Morhen. Remember in season 1, Queen Calanthe of Sintra asked Geralt why there are so few witches left, and he told her that it had become impossible to create any more since the sacking of Kaer Morhen. This is where he and Ciri are planning to go now, and he tells her that witches go there in the winter to heal and replace their armor and elixirs. It is a home to him, but not many have heard of it because they prefer to keep it secret. By the way, Geralt does this really cool hand gesture called Axi, a calming sign for his horse Roach. The mages have a prisoner who had helped orchestrate the fall of Sintra. Tissaia, who was looking for answers about what Nilfgaardian forces are going to do next, and Yen's whereabouts, basically tries to pull all of his knowledge and memories out, and we see that this is basically torture. Then we see Yen. She's been captured by Fringilla, which might be worse than being dead. You see, since the Nilfgaardian forces lost the battle in Sodden, Fringilla wants to use Yen, offer her as a sacrifice because she can't exactly go back to her superiors empty-handed. Yen warns that Fringilla is just being used as a pawn though. Ciri and Geralt arrive at a town and it looks like the same town we saw at the beginning of the episode where Colin and his companions were killed. They learn that an old friend of Geralt's, Nivellen, lives there, but he's since been cursed, so he doesn't look the same. It also looks like he has a secret. Nivellen and Geralt talk quite a bit, and he asks Geralt if he's told Ciri yet that witches obtain children to basically feed them herbs and eventually turn them into witches, monsters. But Geralt says that that won't happen to Ciri. Ciri eventually meets Verena, who comes creeping into her room at night. Verena looks human, but she obviously isn't. This is what Nivellen is keeping from her and Geralt. When Geralt goes outside, he sees the mangled bodies of Colin and the two women, and he senses that a Bruxa is in the house. It's Verena, and we even see her feeding off Nivellen, and though she doesn't kill him, she struggles to contain her appetite otherwise. Nivellen says that he found her and fell in love with her, and because she never judged him because of the way he looked, he kind of looked the other way when she attacked the townspeople. Eventually, Geralt beheads her, and before she spontaneously combusts, she tells Ciri that he'll come for her too. After she's beheaded, the curse is lifted, and a heartbroken Nivellen, because he's lost his love, is human again. At the end of the episode, someone attacks Fringilla's camp, taking out everyone except for her and Yennefer. In episode 2, we find out that both Fringilla and Yen were captured by elves. Fringilla tells the head elf, Francesca, that Nilfgaard's quarrel isn't with the elves but with the northern kingdoms. Yen is also part elf, remember, and she tells them that, but they don't see her as one of them. Remember, she wasn't actually raised as an elf, and she's quarter elf. The elves consider killing them as a message to Aretuza, a reminder of elven glory. The elves, by the way, also refer to Cintra as Zintrea. This was the elven name before it was taken by the humans, and we learn that while Filavandrel was the leader of the elves, king of the elves according to the Bard's song, the elves turned to Francesca when Filavandrel failed to take down Calanthe. Geralt and Ciri finally make it back to his home Caer Morhen, and they're given a warm welcome. He tells Vesemir, who is kind of like a father figure to him, that he brought Ciri there to be safe while he watches her for answers, figures out what she is. One of the witches, Eskel, kills a creature called a Leshy. He's very agitated and violent, and at one point, while he's with a woman, we see a branch of the Leshy come out of a wound in his back. Fringilla and Yen share their dreams with Francesca, who has similar dreams that might be able to guide them. A kind of tomb opens up underneath some old elven script, and they end up in a forest. They see these figures they've been dreaming about, and they all each get advice, or rather, they're confronted with their fears. Francesca, for example, is told that to see her child come to term, she needs to live amongst the humans. And Yen has to confront the fact that she seems to have lost her power since releasing her chaos in Sodden. On their first night in Caer Morhen, there are weird vibrations in the air, and the Leshy might be back. Geralt sees that Eskel has become the Leshy, or rather he was infected by it. Vesemir comes to help and tells Eskel that he can help him, but it's too late for Eskel. Geralt kills him before he can strangle Vesemir. At the end of the episode, Francesca decides to let Fringilla and Yen go free, but Fringilla decides to go with Francesca, who says that the elves and Nilfgaard might be able to form some kind of alliance. Yen is struggling with her powers, and Geralt starts to train Ciri so she can also protect herself. In episode 3, Ciri has been having recurring nightmares about a black knight. She's riding away from Cintra on his horse and she feels helpless. This actually happened before she screamed and saved herself, so it's more of a memory nightmare. She told Geralt about it in episode 1, and she tells him again this episode, so there must be more to it. Tissaia is back at Aretuza and she's struggling with Yen's loss. The Council of Mages are having a meeting about the alliance between the elves and Nilfgaard, which worries Stregobor, who is already worried about his grip on power. The interrogation of the prisoner was unsuccessful because he seems to have a magic barrier in his mind. Yen comes back to Aretuza at last, and Tissaia tells her that she is the hero who saved them and she'll forever be grateful, but she needs to lay low for now and let Vilgefortz take this win, because Tissaia and Vilgefortz are looking to get more power in the Mages Council from Stregobor. Politics, basically. The elves are now in Cintra, or Zintrea as they call it, and many of them are still arriving to seek refuge there, supposedly protected by Nilfgaard. Filavandrel doesn't trust the humans, but Francesca feels she's willing to pay the price for a home for her people. Yen is still struggling to regain her powers. Fringilla tells Francesca that she wants her help. The elves know the land really well and can be helpful in Nilfgaard's quest to be a dominating power in the region, I guess. Not sure if Fringilla is trustworthy here because her men are already complaining about all the incoming elves. Stregobor, who senses Yen as a potential threat, uses his power to try and extract information out of her about how she was able to use that chaos power in Sodden, her fire magic. How did she survive it? And how did she survive being taken by Nilfgaardians? Remember, Queen Calanthe told Ciri in Season 1 that Nilfgaardian forces don't keep their prisoners alive. Why is she back? Tissaia stops him before he can do any more damage. In order to prove that she's not a spy though, Stregobor tells Yen that she has to kill the Nilfgaardian prisoner. At the last minute, Yen decides to free the prisoner and she runs off with him. All of this in front of the Northern Kings and the Council of Mages. I should mention that this prisoner is Caer, a real higher up in Nilfgaardian leadership. Geralt and Ciri go out to the woods because she tells him that she feels a pull towards them. He tells her that at her parents' wedding party, Ciri's mother showed really extraordinary power that could pretty much take everyone out. He's certain that she has the same power. They come across a Leshy then in the forest, and Geralt tells Ciri to run. Another creature comes out, kills the Leshy, and this creature almost attacks her, but Geralt slays it on time. Since Ciri didn't use her power to fight it, I'm guessing she can sense where the monsters are, because she is the one who led them to the Leshy. In episode 4, Geralt's training of Ciri continues, and I really enjoy their training scenes. She's going to make such an adorable and a good witcher, or whatever she becomes. She meets Triss then in the forest, and Triss also gets a warm welcome from the witches. She knows them. In a city called Gorsvelen, elves are being enslaved and taken by soldiers. We'll find out in a bit why the northern soldiers are capturing them. We see that that's where Yen and the ex-prisoner are hiding. They are both wanted people in Gorsvelen, so it's not safe there for them. Since the elves have taken refuge in Sintra, the North thinks that the rest of the elves are all sleeper agents for Nilfgaard, which is why the soldiers from the North are imprisoning them. We meet King Vizimir of Redania, one of the regions of the north. Dijkstra, one of his advisors, comes in and kills another 2 of his advisors for supposedly being traitors. And we learn that the northern kingdoms have formed an alliance based on their mutual hatred of elves, and Dijkstra suggests to King Vizimir that they can take Sintra from Nilfgaard if they're smart. Meanwhile, back at Kaer Morhen, Geralt tells Ciri that he brought Triss there to guide her, just like Mousak guided her. Geralt tells Triss about what happened in the previous episode, that Ciri was the one who led them to the Leshy and that another creature killed the Leshy and came after them. It seemed as though this creature wanted to get at Ciri. They start performing a kind of magical autopsy to see if a mage could have created this creature. It wasn't created by a mage, but they find out that both creatures have the same dust on them, stellacite, from a monolith. Ciri tells them then that she saw a monolith topple when she was escaping Sintra. When the Black Knight captured her, out of fear she screamed, and that's when the monolith toppled. She did it. So Yen and Cahir get to the rendezvous point where they'll wait for a boat to Sintra, and there she sees Jaskier. He tells them that they leave at nightfall. He'll be escorting them out of the city and to the boat. Then we see Ciri's old elven friend Dara. Remember they traveled together in season 1 and he saved her from eating poisoned berries and warned her that Mousak wasn't real Mousak? Well, yeah. He's been captured by the North. Geralt decides that he's going to go to Sintra to find out more about the monolith. Triss portals him there and he ends up in Istred's study, because Istred studied and is something of an expert on monoliths. While Vesemir is out in the woods, he finds a plant called Fainwed, something that can only grow where elder blood has been spilled. But elder blood was wiped from the continent generations ago. We find out that this is the key to making more witches. Ciri is the key because these buds are in the places she was. Ciri has elder blood, and during her training in the forest, everywhere that she spilled blood during her training, the flowers grew. At the end of the episode, Jaskier accompanies Cahir and Yen to the boat, but as he says goodbye to them, he's attacked. In episode 5, we see a mage named Reince in prison, and he's been there for 10 years for some petty crime against the Cintran crown. A woman named Lydia tells him that he was a fool to go after Calanthe and not cover his tracks. She tells him of Calanthe's death and of a little girl that the White Flame is hunting. Others will start to hunt her too, so it's important that they find her first. She says she isn't working for Nilfgaard though. So Istred is taking orders from Fringilla, who's trying to find safe passage for the elves into Sintra, since the boats aren't safe. He's looking for a passage via land, and that's when Geralt arrives, and he tells Istred that since the monolith fell, a new subspecies of monsters have been coming out of it. They eventually go to the site of the shattered monolith, and that's where Geralt finds out that Yen is still alive. We go back to the events of the end of last episode. Jaskier has been captured by Reince, who is torturing him. Reince tells us that chaos needs to be drawn from a source, and in his case, fire, which is forbidden because it consumes those who draw from it. This is how Yen lost her power, remember? Reince is able to use it though. Yen comes in and the scene starts out being wonderfully chaotic as she pretends to be drunk. She manages to attack Reince and she and Jaskier make a run for it. She eventually gets captured again though. She goes back into the old woman's forest. She says that she wants access to chaos, and a version of Ciri appears and tells Yen that she's the key to getting her power back. She has to deliver Ciri to Sintra. We'll find out a little bit more about this woman in the forest called the Deathless Mother in a minute. Vesemir tells Ciri that the reason there are so few witches is because when Kaer Morhen was destroyed, so was the mutagen that allowed them to make new witches. He tells her that she might be able to help. He shows her the flowers that sprouted everywhere she bled on the training course. Ciri agrees to do it, give a vial of her blood, on the condition that it be tested on her first. They start making mutagen, and Geralt is going to be mad if they turn her into a witcher without him there. Triss performs some kind of magic on Ciri in order to try and see where her magic comes from, and they're transported through different scenes throughout her life. Her mother Pavetta sees her and talks to her, and so do the witches, which is not how it's supposed to work. She's not meant to be seen in these scenes. There is a scene with Pavetta and Ciri the night that Ciri's parents died, and they're speaking of some prophecy. Ciri is also there as a baby. Ciri screams for Geralt then, and her screams are heard all the way at the monolith where he is. Just as Vesemir is about to give her the mutagent, Geralt arrives and stops them. At the end of the episode, we see that Dara has arrived in Zentreia, and so has Cahir. In episode 6, Ciri and Geralt have left Caer Morhen. They're on the road again when he sees a Chernabog, and he says that he'll try to draw it out so that they can cross the river. It attacks Roach, and Geralt has to put her down to stop her suffering. Ciri then goes to the top of the rock as Geralt drinks an elixir, and he manages to slay the Chernabog. Oh no, then Rhaenys arrives in Caer Morhen and attacks the witches, injures Vesemir, and he steals the vial of the mutagent. There's a bit of power tension between Cahir and Fringilla because remember, he was her superior, but she seems to be the leader now, even though her position might be a little vulnerable. He tells her that they need to refocus on the real reason they took Cintra, to find the girl, Ciri. Right now, that's been kind of put on hold while they settle and form an alliance with the elves. Ciri and Geralt finally arrive at a place where Geralt spent some time at in the past as well, a temple, and we meet Nenneker, one of Geralt's old teachers. This is where Ciri is to learn to control her chaos. Meanwhile in Cintra, Filavandrel tells Francesca that he feels something has been off ever since Cahir's arrival. Istred goes to see someone named Ellis Codringer and his partner Fen, who are experts, historians, and have access to some old texts. He asks about what a witcher, monolith, and a girl might have to do with Nilfgaard. After a lot of reading and discussion, Istred tells Ellis and Fen about a gene that he sees that keeps showing up in the timeline, but only in women. We find out that in the battle between the humans and elves, the elves built a weapon to destroy the humans. Only it was not really a weapon, the elves built a warrior. And so Queen Calanthe knew that this was in her bloodline and she hid it. It appears that Yen is also at this temple, and finally she and Geralt have a tender and romantic reunion. Francesca finally gives birth and her baby lives, but Cahir starts planting doubts about the alliance in Fringilla's mind. He asks her, what if the elves just decide to repopulate without Nilfgaard's help? He seems to think that they don't have enough power or leverage in this alliance. Rhaenys finally tracks Ciri down in the temple, but Yen and Geralt arrive just in time. Yen runs off with Ciri and Geralt fights Rhaenys' men. It's an excellent scene. Yen then teaches Ciri to make a portal and they escape. At the end of the episode, Triss tells Tissaia that Ciri's blood can change the world, but in the wrong hands, she could destroy it. In episode 7, Geralt is surveying the damage in the temple after his fight with Rhaenys' men, and he sees Redanian crowns. So they were sent by King Vesemir of Redania or his people? We don't know. Ciri and Yen end up at the house where a woman once took her in last season, just before she and Geralt found each other. She sees that Rhaenys has murdered the family. They decide then to go to Cintra. Yen might have an agenda, but I'm hoping that she has a change of heart. Tissaia and Vilgefortz are lovers now, and together they have quite a bit of power in the Brotherhood Council of Mages. She says that they have a visitor, one of King Vesemir's men. That must mean that Redania is up to something. Things are getting tense in Cintra. Well, they always are. Some of Fringilla's men suspect that Redania must have planted spies among the people coming in, because it's not just elves coming into Cintra anymore, it's anyone seeking refuge. In a show of strength and to put some fear into the people, one of the men executes a woman in public who they accuse of being a spy. Geralt breaks Jaskier out of jail and asks for his help. So in Cintra, the elves don't want to show up for training anymore, and Fringilla is agitated because this was the deal, that the elves align with Nilfgaard, but Filavandrel tells Fringilla that he's had a change of heart. The elves want to rebuild and not fight. Francesca feels the same. The Council of Mages in Aretuza are also worried about Francesca's elf baby. This is a possibly dangerous symbol of hope for those who are aligned against their enemies, Nilfgaard. Geralt puts the pieces together as Jaskier tells him what happened with Yen, and he figures out then that Yen is probably working with the Deathless Mother, Voleth Mare. The first witches were hired to imprison her and they entombed her in her hut. Geralt eventually gets a horse from some dwarves and they're going to come along on this next adventure. Yen, meanwhile, is still teaching Ciri magic on the fly to get to Cintra. Fringilla portals herself back to Aretuza to her uncle and she says that she may need to leave Nilfgaard soon. The elves don't want to help her. He tells her that she should return and apologize for aligning with Nilfgaard. She doesn't. She returns to Cintra and she magic poisons and murders all of Cahir's men, or her men, and she tells Cahir then that when Emhyr arrives, he needs to tell them that she was justified in killing these traitors. While she's carrying all of this out, we do hear Volethmer in the background cackling. Dara decides that he's done being a spy for Redania. Ciri and Yen are at the monolith in Cintra when Ciri figures out that Yen is leading her into a trap. She gets emotional over the betrayal, which causes another kind of earthquake, but they're being pursued, so they kind of almost have to band together to escape. Just then, Geralt and the dwarves arrive. Yen recites the Deathless Mother's chant and she then escapes from her hut. Uh-oh. In all this chaos, Francesca's baby suddenly dies. We see the Deathless Mother cross paths with Ciri, whose eyes turn green, and we hear her laughing maniacally in the background. Volethmer is in Ciri now. In the final episode of Season 2, Episode 8, Ciri wakes up in Cintra in the castle. Both Mousak and Queen Calanthe are alive, but Ciri is aware that this is wrong. In this dream, she also appears to be in Cahir Morhen, and after she kills 2 witches and might be about to kill Vesemir in his sleep, Geralt and Yen come in, and Geralt quickly realizes that this isn't Ciri. Yen gets to work making a potion to try and save Ciri. Fringilla tells Cahir that Francesca and some of the elves have left, and that Francesca's baby has died. She feels as though they're losing power, but Cahir tells her that they could use this in their favor. Blame Redania for killing the baby, which would make the elves and Redanians enemies, which would suit the White Flame and Nilfgaard's ends. Geralt tries to get Volethmer to release Ciri. It doesn't go well. She lets out a scream and unleashes her beasts. It's a bloodbath and a lot of witches are killed. While Ciri is kind of locked away in a happy memory of Cintra, she hears Geralt call out to her. Francesca, meanwhile, goes to Redania and she basically kills all of the babies as vengeance for her own baby's death. Yen decides to sacrifice herself then. She offers to be the vessel for Volethmer since Volethmer lost her hut. The only way Volethmer can leave Ciri is if she has another vessel. As Ciri's dream world turns to ashes, she returns to Cahir Morhen as Geralt calls out to her. Then Ciri opens a portal with the intention of sending Volethmer into it. She succeeds and Yen is also saved. Yen also gets her powers back because of the sacrifice she was willing to make for Ciri. When they're in that other realm, we see the Wild Hunt, and they want Ciri to join them. Geralt says that this is why they can't stay at Cahir Morhen. The Brotherhood of Mages decide to put a bounty on Ciri's head and anyone who protects her. You see, the King of Redania is already looking for her, and if he finds her and marries her, he'll stake a rightful claim to Cintra, and that's too much power. Istrid gets captured by elves and he tells them that Ciri is Elder Blood, just like in the prophecy. Francesca thinks that she's the one who can save them. Geralt doesn't forgive Yen, but he acknowledges her sacrifice and he asks Yen to train Ciri to use her powers. He then tells Ciri that her scream woke Volethmer. Somehow though, Nilfgaard knew that Ciri was the key to their future, and Geralt wonders how they knew that. Finally we meet Emhyr, who seems pleased with the outcome of the elves now fighting the Redanians until he reveals that he was the one who ordered the death of Francesca's baby because he wants to find his daughter. This turns out to be Ciri's father. What? We get some post-credit scenes as well, and it looks like elves are fighting. This could be the origin story of the elves, I'm guessing, and it's called The Witcher Blood Origin. Anyway, that's it for this recap. Even though I thought the very final scene with Volethmer and Ciri was a little too long, it was a phenomenal second season. Thank you for watching.